few days ago, Ralphie made a guest appearance in Whiskey and the Sixers podcast, the Whiskey Rant podcast, alongside the Sippers Social Club. And he made a point about the cheapness of marketing when it comes to a recommendation from somebody on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, wherever their main platform is, TikTok probably as well at this point. And he made the point that marketing budgets can run up hundreds of thousands of pounds. So to get a recommendation from somebody that has an audience in the niche that sort of goes into their own market, say for example whiskey reviews or so like that, it's gold dust to these people, because it costs them a bottle and a bit of goodwill and maybe a bit of razzmatazz and an invite to a party or something like that, but it's cheap as chips. The only way that can be bested is if an unsolicited good word comes a whiskey's way. Now these things are the unicorns of the whiskey's world, and once in a while they happen, and they see great benefits off of the back of them. That was not the live stream podcast that I thought I would be talking about when I first switched on the camera, because the focus of today's is based off of another live stream, and it's not one of mine. It actually comes from Roy at Aquavitae. I'm just doing the rounds with all the Whiskey Tube royalty. Let's mention Jeff Whiskey as well, to get him in there while we're at it. There we go. I think I've definitely missed one or two, haven't I? Sorry, Moa. On one of his live streams, Aquavitae, he was talking a couple of weeks ago about sort of top 12-year-old malts. And it went on for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, as it normally does at the VPub. And at one point, he started talking about this. Glenturret 12. I keep having to stop myself from saying Glenlivet. I don't know why. I think I'm just getting as far as Glen. I don't have it with any other... I don't have it with Glendronach. I don't have it with Glenallachie. For some reason, with this one, I have to stop myself and correct myself mid-sentence that it is Glenturret. Strange. But he started speaking in glowing terms about this whiskey. It's a 12-year-old whiskey. It's an inaugural release. It's sort of coming off of the back of sort of the new labour of the whiskey world, for want of a better way of putting it. It's a reimagining of what was before a peripheral brand. I think it's fair to say it was one of those ones that people were aware of, but nobody spent any time with it, nobody talked about it, nobody evangelised about it, for want of borrowing one of Roy's terms. But then suddenly, Roy started talking about this whiskey in glowing, amazing terms. It was a sort of a beacon from the heavens almost, that this whiskey had been sent to him and he had been thoroughly enjoying it, and that he'd gotten quite far down the bottle. I've had this for a little over a week, and as you can see, I've been getting to know this whiskey as well. Some people occasionally criticise that I do the first pour off of a bottle, and I hear you. So I thought, seeing as I had the bottle, I might as well get to know it a bit, partly because I just kind of wanted to have a few sips off of it, and it has evolved as the level has gone down. Some notes about this one. It normally retails for $65. And a lot of people did pay that, because on the night that I was watching that live stream, I was like, do you know what, I'll just have a quick look on Master & Malt. And every once in a while, it will tell you how many people are looking at it. It comes up in like a little yellow thing, like, hurry now, this many people. I think it was something like 40 odd people were looking at that page. And I was like, that's going to be sold out pretty soon, and sure enough it was. And I think similar with other websites like Tyndrum, Aberdeen Whiskey, those kind of sites were all experiencing high demand all of a sudden. It probably took them a couple of hours to be like, right, Roy liked it, okay, cool. Thus is the power of these people. I should probably put in a clip of Darth Sidious or something there, shouldn't I, if I can be bothered. I did not pay £65 for this. I got this from the Good Brothers wine shop. Yeah, it's a wine shop, and it's called Good Brothers, but for some reason I'm not quite sure I've gotten that name right. Good Brothers Wine. They have a YouTube channel, and they talk about wine quite a bit, and there's occasionally a bit of food shenanigans in there as well, and I shall link there, and also there, in the description box, not my... Anyway, so I saw this was online after the dust had settled and everyone had gotten their bottle, and I saw that it was on sale for 56. I thought, well, that's a bargain. So I thought, you know, I'll go and buy that. And for whatever reason, something on the shop wasn't quite working that night. So I messaged them and I was like, hey, can you put a cider bottle and I'll come and collect it tomorrow from Stockbridge? They're like, yeah, sure. Because that's how sales work. And I nipped in and we got talking, and I got talking about the live stream that had happened, and, you know, Roy glowing about it, and mentioned a few other whiskey tubers as well. At no point did I mention that I have a channel myself. I want to quickly point this out as well. At no point did I go, oh, I'm one of them off of the YouTubes, don't you know? They very kindly gave me an industry discount on top of that as well, so I ended up paying £53 for this. There's a lot of people that hate my guts right now, and I don't blame you. I practically stole this bottle. Now, I will quickly say, if you're paying £65 for this bottle, I say you're paying too much. It's a nice whiskey. It's a lovely whiskey. For the calibre of experience that I've had with this whiskey, and I've been getting to know it for a little while now, I don't think it tops other whiskies, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds in some cases, that are heavily sherried, full provenance, that go for less money. It reminds me a lot of the Signatory Edredau releases. They do these single cask, heavily sherried, usually 10-year-olds, unchill filtered, natural colour, all that fun stuff, and they are, I've had an opportunity to try 2 different releases of theirs, and they've both been incredible. Absolutely, I have that kind of euphoric realisation about those whiskies that I think Roy has had about this one. But that's not to say it's in any way, shape or form a bad malt, because it's absolutely not. So we're going to get to know it a little bit now that I've done my little bit of talking. Also, quite a nice cork stopper. It's not too much, it's not over the top, it's just, it is what it is. So, the bottle's nice, isn't it? We'll be talking about that right now, because I need to give this a minute. Oh, I should really give it 12 minutes, but we'll see if we can get away with it. So, the bottle, I will start by saying it is a fucking gorgeous bottle. Remember earlier we were talking about how much this bottle costs? Not all of that is for the liquid contents. We know that already because we have eyes. It is a glorious decanter, and I think you'd be stupid not to repurpose it once you were done. It reminds me of another younger whiskey that a lot of the internet and a lot of people that have tried it have had some fantastic experiences of, that comes in a hefty, great big bottle. One of these in each hand, you could do some damage. In fact, if they ever decide to bring back Robot Wars for the 3rd time round, if they decide to redesign Mr. Psycho, forget the hammer, just have this on a pneumatic piston. This will smash the shit out of anything. There we go, there's a reference that maybe 2 people will appreciate. Possibly 3, who knows, let's go on, let's treat ourselves. I'm rambling, aren't I? I've been doing live streams recently and I'm getting used to just talking shite and getting away with it, so this should be fun to edit. Glentoran before this, they were known primarily for the famous grouse experience. If you visited their distillery, I've never visited their distillery before, I want to quickly preface this, it's what I've heard secondhand from I wonder who. They mainly bigged up sort of their links with famous grouse, and they didn't talk too much about the actual whiskey that they produce. So it was kind of almost like a sideline. A lot of their bottles were released, and I've had a look at like their 10-year-olds and stuff, and I've been like, do I want to? And the answer's been, nah. And when these guys relaunched, it was in that spate a few months ago where everybody and their mum was redesigning their bottles. We had Ben Romack, Ben Riach. Aaron had kind of done it about a year previous, so that they weren't the trailblazers in that one, but you know, you had a lot of whiskies being redesigned around about the same time, and then this got brought out in the new bottle. It's a beautiful bottle, it's a very striking bottle. It needs to be a striking bottle. Now then, when you redesign a bottle, it's an expensive process. When you do a brand redesign, it's an expensive process. It is primarily to try and get people's attention again, and if there's a brand that definitely needed to do that, Glentoran has got to be one of them. It's one of those ones that had just kind of fallen by the wayside, and it needed some attention. So a quick and easy way of doing it is to completely just throw out the baby in the bathwater and start over. They're going down the luxury whiskey market, absolutely, because there's a lot of money in it at the minute. God knows what they will do when the bubble inevitably bursts. I'm not saying it's coming like in 6 weeks' time or anything like that, but you know, it will eventually, because these things, they go up and down all the time. Most things are cyclical in one way or another. I do like that it's still a little bit homespun though. Like, for example, my bottle, the label's not on quite right. There's actually a bump in it. You see it there, I can actually catch my finger on it. It's not quite flush where it's been put on. So I know, well, I don't know. Either it's been done by hand or a really incompetent robot. I'll leave myself open there, but I suspect that's been done by hand, just because it's a bit on the wonk, isn't it? Although actually, if you were doing it by hand, you'd probably make sure that it's probably an incompetent robot, now I think about it, so never mind. And on the sticker on the back, it's a clear sticker with writing, which I'm not convinced was a good move, because you've got light brown writing on a brown liquid. It does kind of show up, but then when obviously it dips down, it's a bit more difficult to read. I'm fine because my eyesight's okay, because I'm still young and virile, but for all you old fucks out there, you're knackered. One thing I will quickly say as well, this is non-chill filtered and it is natural colour, but it doesn't say it on the bottle. It says it on the box, which I meant to bring over and I didn't. So it says it's clear and day on the box, but it doesn't say it on the bottle, so I'd imagine Ralphie's foaming at the mouth at that one, but the information's there, we know it. Should talk about the whiskey now, shouldn't I? That would be an idea. The whiskey's a beautiful chestnut colour. I dig the colour, it's lovely. The nose, it's really complex and vibrant. There's loads going on. There's kind of like a dry cocoa, raisins, figs, honey, a little bit like camphor wood as well. There's like a musk element to it. It's reminding me a little bit of like sandalwood and stuff like that. It's a really aromatic, quite spicy nose it's got going on. A little bit of cardamom as well, like it's been roasted when you're making a curry. I've been making a lot of curries recently, that's why I have that frame of reference in mind. Do you know, it's reminding me of coffee and walnut cake as well, and I'm not quite sure why, because that's a really dense mixture of different things. You've got sugar, cake, walnut, coffee, but it's got that kind of like all together or not at all kind of a smell that you get from a coffee and walnut cake. I love coffee and walnut cake. What's not to like? It's got coffee, it's got walnuts, it's got cake, but to actually sip it, the initial impression is very dry. It's got fresh ginger, cloves, cinnamon, cardamom. It's got a spice cupboard in a glass. You can kind of detect the start of like other flavours, but they're not quite ready to meet you yet. The initial impression is really inviting. And goes through this wonderful roast dry spice. And it gets almost a little bit eucalyptusy towards the back. It is not a like overly sweet whiskey that a lot of quite active sherry cask finishers are. This one's much more a focus on, one of a way of putting it, it's more a focus on the base whiskey rather than the coat it's wearing. Something a little bit almost like Parmesan as well. That's a weird one. It's got, I think what I'm trying to get across is there's a wonderful umami flavour to it, rather than saying that it's cheesy. Or maybe it wasn't the best pick, but it was kind of like the first light bulb that went off in my head, and then I had to kind of think of it and like, it's not quite right. It's not quite the right match. When you're doing tasting notes, you don't always necessarily get them right the first time round. Something will come in your head and you're like, yeah, it's like that, and you're like, is it? Actually, no, I'm not sure it is. Let's try that again. It's wonderful, like, if anyone's ever tried baking plums in the oven, or like grilling plums with like honey on top, a little bit of like brown sugar as well. I read a lot of Nigel Slater, that explains why I make that. But it's reminding me a lot of that when I first sip it, and then it's developing into the spices and then getting a little bit kind of like mentally eucalyptusy towards the back. From my experimenting with this, I found that a little bit of water goes a long way with it. So we're going to do that. I think it'll take a bit more. There we go. I'm still using this unwieldy water jug that's really not fit for purpose. But it looks pretty. I never really talk about legs, do I? So I'm not going to start now. The nose becomes a lot more classically inviting. There's a lot more vanilla and caramel. It's like a confectioner's custard base. You know, like sometimes if you go to Greggs or other bakeries are available and you get like a filled donut. It's got like that thick creme patissiere kind of custard in it. There's much more confectionery patisserie notes on the nose now. But there's still a fair bit of fruit coming through as well, kind of like red currant cranberry, a little bit as well. It's reminding me a little bit of like a peppermint oil as well. Again, these nosing and tasting notes are a little bit all over the place, but it says a lot about the whiskey itself, that it's kind of challenging me to draw out other things that aren't just kind of like, oh, it's kind of like vanilla, it's kind of like caramel, it's kind of like chocolate, yay! You know, having to think a little bit more about what it's reminding you of, what the whiskey's invoking within itself. The initial impression is Cadbury caramel chocolate. You know, the dairy milk with like a pocket of like that liquid oozy caramel in it. They're terrible for you. It's still one of my favourite chocolate bars. I'm a little bit miffed that they changed the design of it a few years ago, but it's still a great chocolate bar. It's hitting all the notes from that. You've got a rich, decadent cacao kind of a flavour. It's quite buttery, it's rich, it's sweet. And then you've got this golden, sugary sweetness from the caramel as well. There's custardy notes, creme brulee. But then again, there's this really drying effect as it develops on your palate. The sweetness completely leaves. And it's replaced by, again, kind of like roasted cardamom. There's a little bit of herbal note in there, like thyme. And the finish becomes a little bit more ghostly. It's kind of like everything merging together and then just walking off into the distance. There's nothing new. It's a wonderful, complex, pleasing malt. I'm glad I bought this bottle. I'm glad that I finally got to try some of the fruits of Glenturret. I like the design of the bottle, not that it's relevant, but I do. I like how it looks sitting on my shelf, and to some people that does matter. The liquid contents are excellent. They have clearly worked hard to, for want of a better way of putting it, this is their first day on the job, I think is how they're treating this. This is their kind of like their, you know, showing up to work on the first day, everything's pristinely ironed, they're holding themselves up straight, their handshake's firm but not too firm. And then we have to see after the probation period if they keep that up. But it's very promising. And I am keen to try more from them. I'm really keen to try, they released a couple of 10-year-olds? Am I getting mixed up with the Benriacs now? They released a peated 10-year-old, I'm certain. Benriac also did, but I'm certain these guys did. Because I had my eye on that for a little while, and I was like, that could be worth having a punt. I might. But I'm going to finish this first. I've got so many half-empty bottles, well, not even half-empty in a lot of cases. I've got a lot on the go at the minute in terms of whiskey, so I need to calm down a little bit. Can you have too much whiskey? No. Should you spend all your money on whiskey? No. Ooh, that hurt more than it should have done. Let me know down below, are there any other whiskey reviewers that you follow that you're a big fan of? Let me know. I think I've name-dropped most of them in this video. If for whatever reason you're not following any of them, what are you doing? Seriously, go. I'll leave a few links down below to some good folk to follow as well. Have you tried any of the Glenturrets, both past incarnations or current? What do you think of them? Did you get on with them? Have you managed to nab the maiden 12-year-old? Did you enjoy it? Are you not too sure about it? Are you still getting to know it? Where are you with it? Do you have another entry level, well, this is not entry level, but 10-year-old, 12-year-old, that kind of an age statement that kind of knocked your socks off and made you go, ooh, what the hell is that? Wow, that's something else. Let me know down below. Thumb this video if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already subscribed, then consider it, because I have too many bottles of booze in this flat, and I need to share them with somebody. I should get the cat in it again at some point.